Okay, the monochromatic portrait. We are going to be painting our own self-portrait in a monochromatic color scheme. A monochromatic color scheme is one color plus the tints, tones, and shades. We are going to be using just the tints and the shades. A shade is a color mixed with black paint, okay? And a tint is a color mixed with white paint to make the color lighter. We're going to be creating a value scale for our monochromatic color scheme from light to dark. So you're going to be painting your portrait with this value scale from the colors from this value scale here. First thing you need to do is take your picture. The reason why I chose your yearbook portrait was because it's taken with studio lighting, and when I apply the filter effect, I get really nice values. It breaks up the values really nice with the lighting that they use, the studio lighting. So what you want to do is you want to look at your portrait and figure out how many values you have. Everybody is going to have a different number of values. Mine has 1, so you're going to start from the lightest value and then go from light to dark. I have 1 here. This one's my lightest. That's going to be my number 1. Then that's my 2, my 3, my 4, and then my 5 is going to be the black. Okay, so I have a total of 5 values. Everybody has a different amount. I had to Photoshop these individually. So you might have 5, you might have 6, you might have 7. Everyone's going to have a different amount of values. Once you figured out how many values you have, you're ready to start transferring your picture over to the drawing paper. We're going to be using the grid transfer technique, same way we did for the white charcoal drawing. You're going to apply a 1 by 1 inch grid on your picture and a 2 by 2 inch grid on the drawing paper. Okay, so on your picture, it's going to be 1 by 1 inches. You'll line up your ruler at the edge of the picture here. So you'll start at 0 on the edge of your picture, and you'll make a mark at 1 inch, every 1 inch. Across the top, same thing across the bottom, every 1 inch. And then you'll connect your lines. Make sure your lines are straight. You're lining up the edge of your ruler with the edge of the paper. Okay, you'll rotate your paper. You'll do the same thing on the other side. Mark every 1 inch. Do that across the bottom. Connect your dots. Okay, so your 1 by 1 inch grid is done on your picture. Now you're going to do the same thing on your drawing paper. On your drawing paper, it's going to be every 2 inches, okay? You'll do it the same way. Line up your ruler across the top, start at 0, make a mark at every 2 inches. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 across the top. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10 across the bottom. Connect the dots, draw your vertical lines through. Okay, you'll do the same thing on the other side. Mark every 2 inches across the top, mark every 2 inches across the bottom, and then you'll have a complete grid. If you want, you can number the columns with numbers, so you know which column you're on. And then you can number your rows You don't have to put numbers, you can use letters for your rows. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Okay, so you know at all times which box you're working on. You're ready now to start transferring over your image. I'm going to zoom into the image and show you some of the details in mine. Along the edge of this value here, I have lots of ridges. What you can do is just simplify that by drawing a smooth line. So you don't have to copy over all of the little particles and the little zigzags or ridges along the shapes. You can just simplify it and create a smooth edge. You can do that throughout your portrait. I don't want you to do that for the main features on your face, for your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. I do want you to include all of the smaller shapes and all of the ridges around your shapes. I want you to include those because if we simplify the features in the face, then it won't look like you anymore. So you can simplify, smooth out your shapes all throughout except for the four main features. Okay? So you're going to transfer over your image box by box, and you're going to label your values as you go. I'm going to work on this box right here. I'm going to transfer that over to my box here. That is D3. So I'm going to go over to my D3. Let me clear this up. Okay, so D3 is right in here for me, right over here. So I want to transfer what I see in this box to the same box over onto my paper. Okay. The best way to do this is to work on one box at a time and to transfer over one shape at a time, one value at a time. So you're gonna just focus on this area here and you're gonna look for any shapes that are of value number 1. I do have one shape, it's right here. It's my value number 1. I'm going to transfer that over to my D3 box on my drawing paper. So I'm transferring over my value number 1, and I'm also going to label that 1. Then I'm going to look to see if I have any shapes that are of value number 2. I do. It's actually the entire background here. That's my value number 2. What I'm going to do though is just go ahead and put my value number 3. If I draw my value number 3 shape, it'll give me my number 2. So I'm going to draw my value number 3. You're looking at where that enters the box, where it exits the box, and you're transferring it over. So that is my value number 3. I'm labeling the 3 over here. Now I have my value number 2. Once I put in my 3, it gave me my number 2, my background. Now I'm ready to go on to the next value, which is going to be my value number 4. That's the darker gray shape. I'm going to copy it over. Okay, I'm going to label that number 4. Now I'm going to move on to the next one, which is number 5. My number 5 is just right on top of my number 4. I'm going to add that. I'm going to shade this one in. It's my number 5. I'm going to paint over this with a super dark value. So I can shade that in. Kind of helps me see what it's going to look like after it's filled in with the value. Okay, so I got my number 1s. I got my 2s. I got my 3. I got my 4. I got my 5. Now I have some of these smaller shapes around here. I have one small shape that's right above my value number 5, and it looks like that's going to be a 3, so I'm going to add that small shape. Going back and getting the details now, that's going to be a 3. I have one more shape right in here. That looks like it's a 2. I'm going to draw that in. Label that a 2. So now I'm finished with my box here. I'm ready to move on to the next box. Okay? So you just want to focus on one value at a time. So all my shapes for my value number 1, all my shapes for my value number 2, my number 3, my number 4, my number 5. If you have lots of smaller shapes, you can save the small ones for the end, the details, like these 2 small shapes that I had within the eye. I waited to add those at the very end. But for the most part, I went in order. I drew one value at a time in order from 1 through 5. When you're done drawing your portrait, when you're done transferring your portrait, you're ready to start painting. What you're going to do is look at the handout that I have at your table. At your table, I have the handout that has the example of the value scale. It's a 7-point value scale, 1 through 7. Now, everyone has a different amount of values. This one is made for 7, and the color is red. Okay? Yours might be 6. You might have 6. You might have 5. You might have 4. So you're going to pick and choose which values you're going to use. So if you have 6, you might want to just remove the last one and make number 6 a little bit darker, or you might just want to take 6 out. If you have 5 values, you would remove these 2 and go with something like that. Okay, you just have to make sure each value looks different. You can see a difference between each one. You have to make sure there's a big difference between each one because you're painting these values next to each other on your picture, and if they look the same, then it's going to blend your shapes together and it's not going to look like you. So you have to make sure there's a big jump from one value to the next. Okay? Usually your original color goes somewhere in the middle. We have 7 values here. I chose to put it in the middle here at number 4. I have 3 dark ones on the right, 3 light ones on the left. So I put my original color right there in the middle. If you have 6, I would put your original color probably in the same place. Do 3 tints, mix 3 tints, the original color, and then 2 shades. If you have 5 values, I would put the original color right there in the middle. Original color, 2 shades, and 2 tints. Okay? When you're mixing your paint on your tray, you want to make sure that you don't waste too much paint. When you're making the shades, you always want to add the black to your color. Okay? When you're making your tints, especially the really light ones, you're going to add the color to the white paint. Okay? You'll get your tint a lot quicker if you do it that way. If I added white to my color, it would take a lot of white paint to get a really light tint. So the fastest way to do it is to add color to the white paint for the tints. Okay, so you're adding your color to the white paint for the tints, and you're adding black to your colors for the shades.